All right, beautiful. We are live on Google Hangouts. What's up, awesome people? Hope you're having an awesome day. I'm excited for our roundtable discussion today. We have a lot of wisdom and firepower on our Google Hangout today. I'm joined by three incredible sellers, each in their unique ways. So I'm going to introduce these guys real quick. My name's Gabe Strom. If you're joining the group for the first time, let me click over here since this is live. And I see us over here in YouTube and it's working. So if you're joining us live, you can chat on YouTube. Lord willing, Google Hangout will work for us today. So I'm joined by the mere, we were joking before this call because we were just talking about all the different platforms we use to broadcast, and each one has a different purpose. So we had multiple of us on here, but I want to introduce real quick, guys. You guys may or may not know Ralph Cochran. Each of these guys is doing high six, some seven figures in sales on Amazon. Some of these guys on the call today have multiple businesses that they're doing multiple six figures on. And so the topic for today is real simple, is how to scale your Amazon business. And not just how do you go and make a couple bucks, but how do you scale this into a real business and build an empire selling on Amazon and everything that goes into that. It's a whole different skill set we've noticed than just flipping a couple things that you find in your Walmart clearance and doing that a couple times. So first off, Ralph Cochran, I'll introduce you. Actually, I'll go left to right. Devin, I see you there just to make it easy. Devin Motti on my left. I don't know if you guys are watching this from Spokane, Washington. Devin's lifetime sales on Amazon. He sent me a message before the chat, 2.8 million lifetime sales, 1.2 million in the last 12 months. Quietly, he's a single guy. He runs the whole business out of your place in Spokane, Washington. You've been traveling all over the place, man, doing ministry, blessing people. I've noticed too. It's been a good chapter for you. But Devin Motti, dude, the OA Ninja. You do all this stuff. You're like a superhero, man. You just pop in, you do this stuff, and people don't even know it. You meet some guy on the street, and he's like, "Hey, what's up with this guy?" So, Devin, thanks for being with us, man.
I appreciate you, Gabe. Looking forward to learning from the three powerhouses and teaching you guys some stuff too. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Cool, brother. Well, appreciate you being here, man. I know you've been flying all over the place recently. So, hey, very quickly, gentleman number 2 in the second hot seat, Ralph Cochran, my middle of the screen here, from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. So our East Coast rep. Ralph, you're a man of many talents. So Amazon business, I've got your stats here. I'm just going to brag on you real quick. From last year, 700K in sales last year on Amazon. From the last summit, here's the most important stat, I think, from the last summit. So this was February of 2016, just shy of $1 million, 930,000 in sales. And I don't know if there was any impact from the summit or why that was the dates. But you should hit $1 million in sales, lifetime sales in the next 30 to 60 days. And you do this like part-time. You got a family, you got a whole nother business, your marketing agency that's high six figures. I'll keep those numbers private, close to $750,000 you shared offline. And so you're doing multiple things and you're finding a way to manage all of it. You got your day job and everything else. But Ralph, thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. Actually, this whole roundtable was actually your idea. So thank you for suggesting this.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to be on them. Probably benefited most from everyone else on this. So I'm kind of the low man on the totem pole, but I'm honored to be part of the team here.
Humility. You guys understand? Like, the first clue of the day. Humility comes before success. We're all here to learn from each other. That's the benefit. We all learn from each other and hang out like this, and you guys that are watching. So last familiar face, you guys may already recognize Grant Dunn in the middle there, the man behind the cheddar machine on the team, the leads guru of the group. You guys have built a beastly retail arbitrage business. You've scaled that into online arbitrage. You've dabbled in wholesale. You guys are working on private label. You've been in the game for, I think, 3-4 years. And you shared your stuff, man, just shy of $1 million also for the last 12 months, $920,531 unofficially from Grant as update of this morning. So you too will cross $1 million for the last 12 months here very shortly. And you guys do this. You've got, I'll let you talk about your team later, but you run the business. Your brother does a lot of the sourcing with you. You have Charles that does pack and prep in your garage, still running it out of your garage, Ty Lopez style, Zach Young style. And your wife helps with books. We have a whole team of VAs that does the lead gen. So that's a whole other thing. But you guys have a relatively small yet mighty team also. But Big G Dunn, welcome to the call, brother.
Thanks a lot, Gabe. I'm excited to be here and hang out with my friends Ralph and Devin and yourself. So hopefully I can add some value to the call.
Yeah, man. Well, let's get started. That was a long, overdrawn intro. I just want to edify you guys because there is a lot of wisdom, and that's the benefit of kind of having a roundtable discussion about this topic of scaling. Because I promise there's going to be some key threads, and so that's my goal for today is to pull those key threads out for scaling. Real quick, I want to say what's up to Denise Miller, Bill Norman, Julie Wiseman. I see you guys in chat, so hello to all of you who are watching. But hey, let me toss up the first question, man, and we'll just do this roundtable side. Ralph, you brought this up earlier. The first question is to scale or not to scale. And I think we all hit a point in our business where it's comfortable. You kind of you figured out the Amazon system. You know how to pack and prep and ship. You understand how to source, but you're like, man, I don't really feel like sourcing today, or you kind of hit that wall or whatever. So I'll just ask, when did you guys ever, any of you guys like make a conscious decision to scale, or did it just start happening? Or let's just start there, and I'll toss that up to whoever wants it.
I guess once I started making money, I'll just answer first. Once I started making money, I kind of joined like everybody else. I was like, well, I'm just going to use this as a supplemental income to feed the dream, which at the time was, still being formed. Then I was like, man, this is a lot of fun. It's doable. It's making a good income. And you hear people saying, yeah, man, turn it up to $1 million a month or $1 million a year. Then you hear people say $1 million a month. And you go, well, where can I fit on this continuum? I got to be able to fit somewhere on this continuum and make some good money, because I'm definitely not the dullest tool in the shed. And there's an opportunity to scale with Amazon, particularly. The platform is so massive that a lot of us could just raise our hand and say, hey, I'll take a pay raise next year by setting up some systems, right? I mean, it's kind of. There's risk. And then, Gabe, one thing I do want to talk about is the fear of scaling. I think the only barrier that anybody really watching has would be capital, right? Systems. And then, of course, the biggest one would be your mental capacity. For example, a lot of people will say, well, you could get suspended. So once you have a system in place and some quality control, then that fear of suspension kind of it's a lot smaller. Right, because that you could pay $2,000 to $5,000 for a professional or whatever you'd have to do, because that your account is well worth way over that, because you have the records to prove it and the vision to see it going further. So once you can get past that fear of suspension, I think that's huge, because a lot of people, they'll talk about that. They'll be like, I don't want to have so much inventory. And Gabe, you're a big mindset person. Unconsciously, a person is saying, I don't want to build a bigger business. When they're saying, I don't want to be responsible for more inventory if an account gets suspended, what they're really saying is, I don't want to build a bigger business and take more risk and make more money. It's that same risk is what's going to make you more money. And it's really not that big of a risk, guys, because the reward for selling your inventory is far greater than the smallest chance that your account, could go down for a while.
Man, Devin, pulling the ghost out of the closet right out of the bat, man. Way to do that. Let's just talk about it. The fear, dude, this is a real thing. So fear of success. It's a crazy, I don't know if any of you guys have dealt with that, Grant or Ralph, of not like, what to do, but you're afraid if I go get more inventory, man, that's more hassles, or I have a greater risk of getting my account suspended. So you're saying, Devin, step one, you had to mentally decide. We could talk about how to break through that. But Grant or Ralph, did you guys ever have that fear of like succeeding? Grant, you may be an anomaly because you're like,
yeah. Go ahead, Grant. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ralph. I'm curious what you have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, fear is, you guys probably know that acronym, false expectations appearing real, and it's something that I've kind of lived with. I used to be heavily involved in the real estate industry and investing in real estate, and anyway, long and short, like there's a lot of fear that comes into that with kind of entering into new types of ventures there. And so I've seen that over the years. And it's interesting, like I've always heard that that little saying, and we're fear of failure. And we lost everything, and I had to start over about 4 or 5 years ago. And so that the fear of failure wasn't like something like possible. It actually had happened, and then even defining what failure looks like. And there's like an objective thing. You think of our, in the cosmos with how does God view failure, all those things, and just understand that. And I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say something about 6 months ago that really kind of took me to the next level on understanding fear. And he said that Gary says it in his very diplomatic Christian language. I'm not going to repeat how he said it, but anyway, but bottom line of what he said, I'll Christianize it for us. Is he goes, fear of failure is really being afraid of what people think of you. And he kind of broke it down in a really good way. And he went through like the logic of it. And he goes, you're not really afraid of failing. You're afraid of what people will think if you fail. And then he said, and he was tutoring someone or coaching him. Like, well, how do you fix that? How do you deal with that? And he goes, go to the people that you're afraid most of failing and talk to them and tell them what you're doing and talk in a way to them that like, you're doing it regardless of what they think. But a lot of times your view of what they think of you is not really what they think of you. And you're not really necessarily going to them asking your blessing, but you're just talking it out loud that, hey, this is what I'm doing. And I want to, and so there's usually like 2 or 3 people in our lives that we have that biggest fear of like, what will they think of the father-in-law or someone else out there? Like, what will they think of me if I fail? Well, I deal with that. Like I lost everything. I moved in back into my parents' house with 6 kids, have $500 in my bank account 5 years ago.
Oh, that's good.
So I've dealt with this in the realest of ways. And, I still get that. So even like this business of Amazon in some ways compared to where we were is pretty small in terms of the revenue numbers we were bringing in even now. And, but I have even more fears because of that. And so I've kind of had to just deal with that, like, and how my wife perceives things or others. And as even I get them plugged in, involved, it kind of dissipates. And it's a false expectation. And we impose it on others. So anyway, that's my little tidbit.
So fear, so there's a couple. Well, fear is a real thing. First off, if that's what that holds you back, Devin. I'm curious what, and well said by the way, Ralph. So Gary Vee says to face your fears head on. There's something about that when you do that. But I think there's 2 different fears though. One is the fear of like if I go for it, like you guys are watching, like all of you guys watching at home, you all have dreams and visions. All of us on the call here have dreams and visions. So what you're talking about, Ralph, you put it on the line. And you go tell your father-in-law or, usually it's a family member that's closest to us, right? Where those, like, it's not the people on Facebook, who cares? It's like the people that are closest to us. But if I'm going to go build a $10 million company and they like laugh in your face, like, yeah, right, you are, or maybe maybe that seems like so far away and you're like, man, I just want to go, get to where you guys are at and do an extra 100 to 300,000 in net revenue and add that to the bottom line. Maybe that would help some things. But Devin, how did you, you of all people on this call probably had the most, adversity from your family. Like you had probably, and I don't know what your support system was like, Ralph or Grant or ours, but how did you, when you made the decision to go for it, man, did you do what Ralph said and like tell your family, or did you just do it? Like how did you face that fear?
Yeah, man. So it's still, I guess you're still always facing every level. There's another challenge. They say there's a song that says the boss gets bigger, right? Once you're in a video game, you play and you level up, well, the next boss is bigger. You're going to have more challenges. So what I talked about earlier was actually suspension fear, which we all say it, but once you can get to a point like you'd be like, meh, I'll be okay, right? I can eBay stuff and transition, and the risk is far smaller than the reward from Amazon. Even if you just make a 10% return and you buy 60 grand worth of stuff a month and you just volume it, and do 6 grand a month. I mean, you're probably only going to have half of that, if anything, ever in stock. So why would just make your freaking money and be okay with it? Like, stop overthinking it, really. Now, as far as like fear from family and self, man, let's see. First of all, bro, just know that God's got you. I mean, that's super important, right? Knowing that you're in alignment with His will, building your business. So a lot of people, and I'm getting more outspoken about, just my goals, who I want to be, what I want to do. And I think as entrepreneurs, I mean, I've always been an encourager of people, but a lot of people just want to work at Walmart. A lot of people just want to work at, CenturyLink and become an executive at CenturyLink, right? Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And the cool thing is about this, though, guys, is we do get to choose our own hours. So it's going to take, let's see, like my family, I'm very logical how I explain it, right? I was like, you guys understand, like, my hustle for the next 3 years is basically, Lord willing, that I'm still here. I'll have basically unlimited or, fully, almost complete time freedom in like 3 to 4 years, to where I could, right now I have a level of time freedom, right? I can pause my business and I could just do some quick ordering and some quick flips and stuff like that, and I can still make 5,000 a month, but it's not going to thrive and hit the 10 to 15 to 18, 20,000 mark unless I'm in the trenches, you know, doing stuff. But even that level of freedom, being able to pause and make 5,000 a month, you know, that's awesome, right? And like, I'm going through some stuff, guys, that's really mentally challenging right now. A lot of people have passed away, and it's kind of like Gary Vee. I just saw like a post of his on Instagram too. He said, like, when you're going through emotional turmoil, it's okay to not be as productive for 2 or 3 months, right? He's like, don't feel like you're going to be out of the game, because I'm like, it's summertime. I'm trying to hustle, man, and get ready for Q4 here during the summer. But even if I pause and things slow down, the bigger vision of scaling is not over a 6-month period, guys. It's actually over like a 2, 3, 4 year period. So you can have peace being like, dude, it might take you, you know, if you're a single mom and you're watching this, it might take you another 2 years to be where Grant or myself or Ralph is at. But even so, if it takes you 2 years to be making a full-time income from home, I mean, that's still worth it. And you'll be making a supplemental income while you have your other job in the meantime. So know that it's worth it. And then, guys, you need to go just gangbusters on buying stuff, right? It's pretty simple. We try to make it complicated, but it's pretty simple. Okay. Make sure you're sourcing from legitimate sources and make sure you have your paperwork, right? Then you can say you've done everything that you can do. So with my family and stuff, guys, I just let them know, even people that I'm friends with that are poor, because if you're having a conversation just like this, even Grant and I and Ralph, we know $1 million a year is not ginormous numbers for Amazon. We know that it's a respectable income, and we're happy, dude. Like, it's a blessing. I know what my net was, and it's a super blessing. But we know that you can be doing $10 million a year. But for the average person on the street, if you talk to them and they're struggling to make, you know, let's just like $3,000 to $5,000 a month, and they have a family to support with that, and you're just telling them, hey, I'm making, you know, 5, 10, or 15 grand. I'm you know, up there about 15 right now a month consistently. That's like intimidating, and they kind of shut down. Even though you're like, hey, bro, I'm not no celebrity. I'm not Donald Trump. He's worth like $9 billion. You can't support your boy making, you know, 15, 30,000 a month, but you'll support someone making this worth $9 billion and say that it's God's chosen person, but you can't raise your hand and say, let me get 500K in the bank. So I'm very logical, guys, and I'm very blunt with people now too. I know people that create a second Facebook account, guys, because they don't want people to know they're an entrepreneur. Like, that's crazy, man. Like, you can't just say like, hey, like that you're, you know, that you're doing it with a real purpose, like to make it, guys, not just saying you're going to do it because it's cool, but you're actually doing it to make it. Don't create no second account, guys. Do a video, guys. Just like, hey, I made $800 this month on Amazon. I have an intention of put it in the group, guys, the Top Secret Amazon group. Gabe will support you. I'll support you. Grant and Ralph certainly. So getting that out of that flesh, guys, and then all this statistical and logistical stuff is easy, guys. Pay for stuff you don't want to do, right? Listen to Grant. He's already got VAs. It took me way too long to get a VA. I pay $500 or $1,000 a month for a VA. As soon as you're making $5 grand a month, just replace yourself on everything you don't want to do. It might cost you $1,500, right? It might cost you $2 grand, but then you can take that $5 grand to 10, boom. And what'd you do? You're making 10 grand now, and you have more time freedom because you're paying $3,000 out for stuff that you don't want to do. So that's a big part of it. Ask these guys too; they'll tell you a lot more on that.
Well, I do good stuff, dude. I do want to talk about the tools and the systems and just see what you guys all think are like the key ingredients if we were making like a recipe for scaling. So that'll be next. I do want to echo. So what Ralph, what you said, and what Devin, you just said is really the first thing is call it vision or call it intention. Like I think the first step to this whole thing and the first step to prosperity in general is to have a vision and an intention for what you're creating. And so I did exactly what you're talking about, Ralph, and Devin also. I had to like sit down and have a conversation. Actually, it was with my mom and dad. That was the two biggest, you know, my dad, I grew up as a missionary kid. My mom was a kindergarten teacher. My dad is a pastor. So we never had a lot of money growing up. So I had a lot of money stories around like it was better to be, you know, I saw my parents sell their house. It's better to be like a poor follower of Jesus than it is to be like a rich man, you know? So I had to sit down and have a conversation with them and say, guys, I love you. It was actually after a leadership event. And this was interestingly, before I met Zach. So this was like 4 years ago, and we've had more prosperity in the last 4 years I didn't total up all of our stuff, but we're bumping up on $1 million as well in services and revenue in the group and everything. And it came from having a conversation with them. He says, I love you guys, but I'm going to go build wealth and bless the kingdom. And that's what I told my parents. And that was like the first step for me. I had to and I was like crying. I don't know why it was so weird. So declaration's powerful though, vision, because it all starts, God gave us all the ability as creators. We're made in the image of Christ. We have the same creative power living in us, but we have to have that vision. So I want to ask, so we all made a decision. So you got to that's step one. You got to make a decision. I think we all agree. You got to decide to go for it. And then you got to surround yourself with people that feed that vision too. I think that's a really key step. So Ralph, I'll start with you, man. Did you have a team, or let me just ask you, man, what's your team look like? I got to ask that question because Devin, I know you run this pretty lean and mean. Ralph, what's your team look like?
Yeah, good question. So let me answer that by saying this first. My strategy has been to basically build out a team that it has capacity for something bigger than what I actually can fill them with work right now. And I'm intentionally probably overspending. And well, it's not even spending, it's over hiring because it's not that expensive actually in the big picture. It's just I'm overgrowing because I'm building a system and I'm trying to find the right people for the team. And the Kiyosaki gets into like team and leadership and vision are kind of the key fundamentals of a successful business system. And so right now I've been kind of working towards getting the right people. So I have, to answer your question very directly, so from a shipping standpoint, I have my shipping manager is Nathan, and they're in the other room right here. So like my little mini warehouse. And
is this at your house, Ralph, or where are you at?
No, I rent a office space / warehouse about a mile from where I am.
Cool.
And yeah, it costs me like $700 a month. But I run my marketing agency in this room, and then over here is where all of our stuff gets shipped in and prepped and sent out. And it's about a 700 square foot room back here, like rectangular thing. Anyway, so yeah, I have a shipper, and then I have an assistant shipping clerk, if you will. I have these titles I give them, and then I also my children this summer. So right now I'm like overstaffed because my children now, my high school children from 9th through 11th grade, 3 of them are working in here, and they've been killing it because we've been able to move things really fast, getting stuff in and just train them up. And then really what it for me is getting them in here working, because my bigger vision why I started this is, was really to get my family, my kids learning the business. My one son is not here right now. He's in Guatemala at an orphanage, which we used money for raising on Amazon through a class to send him out there. And he was actually landed the day the volcano exploded, which is kind of a story in itself. But they're okay. He'll be back tomorrow. And so I got from a shipping standpoint right now, I got a big team. So I got 2 main guys, and then my children supporting that. So right now I got 4 or 5 people, which is way overkill. Anyone on this call will tell me like you're nuts. And I know I'm nuts a little bit, but I'm also about to explode with a ton of stuff for them. Like as I really want to take advantage of Prime Day in July. And then what happens is in the middle of July, all my kids disappear to summer camps and vacations and stuff. So really it'll dwindle down to really a hard of 2 people that are doing consistently shipping.
Okay.
So, and then on the buying side, I have I have a bunch of part-timers and basically I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 people that are doing OA buying for me. Okay. So one thing to keep in this ingredient here, like I don't do any buying, none, 0. Like
you don't source anything retail or
the only exception is I go out and because I have like it's kind of like a therapeutic thing for me. Like I'll take my kids and go RA shopping, or I was on a little RA shopping trip earlier this week. But I also was like a little vacation thing too. So like, so the bottom line is I bought like $2,000-$3,000 in shoes, or Nike Friends and Family or something, or I want to go to a grocery outlet. Ooh, I gave away a big secret. Sorry. But that's
earmuffs. No, just kidding. We're all friends here, Ralph.
we want to hit them up hard. So anyway, the long and short is, but I kind of am bored by RA, and then OA I don't have the patience for it because I get sick of like all the rejections that happen on there. And they're not tons, but I'm kind of lazy. I kind of jokingly say that in one sense. I'm not really lazy, but I am. And so the reality for me is I'm always trying to fire, and I can't because like I'm leaving. I'm going to basically be out of my business for 3 weeks straight, starting not that next week, but the week after, because I have 2 weeks of conferences for my other business, and I'm like a speaker at a national conference, and all the cool stuff, flashy stuff you see out there. I'll be part of that nonsense, and basically growing that business as kind of the rainmaker in speaking. And then a week after that, I'm on vacation. So meanwhile, all that's going on, I'll have this team here buying and shipping stuff in while I'm gone. And so they're buying. My goal is to get them to be buying about $50,000 a month in stuff. Okay. We've ranged from about 30 to 50. I actually pushed it down last month because of Devin's advice, as I was getting caught up on credit card bills and stuff, just to get them paid down and make sure I'm managing my finances well. So I basically have 4 buyers, and they're all around the country. 2 of them are locally. One I sleep next to every night, my wife, and then my mom just started up. She's learning it. And then I have one in Idaho, and then I have another somewhere else. Oh, the other one's here in Pennsylvania too. So I got 4 buyers, and they just do enough they can get by. They're just doing it part-time. They love it, and they get there. So then the other thing that happened just yesterday, and I'll let you, I know you got other people here, is I hired a RA shopper full-time. So I'm taking a little, and that's really to fire me and make sure consistently, like I'm going to give him 3 or 4 stores. I'm friends with Brian Fedler, which is another guy you need to know. He's in Philadelphia. He sells about $3 million a year, and he has really good systems. But he kind of gave me some advice, and long and short, he's going to specialize in basically 2 or 3 stores, and just going in and really hitting those hard, and especially in grocery, because I'm trying to get my sales velocity up so I can become like Grant someday. He's my hero when it comes to sales velocity. So, so that's kind of where I'm at today. But then behind that, I also have a VA who helps manage my account and works with my shipping manager. So they're always doing stuff, and he's full time. Well, he's roughly 30 hours a week. And then I also have a CPA I hired out of the Philippines, who I pay $3 an hour, and her job is to make sure my accountant's doing their job, because I sometimes don't, and my bookkeeper's doing their job. So for a very cheap amount of money, about $30 a week, I have someone else to keep eyeballs on things and the finances. And so I'm really been putting a lot of effort into making sure my books and finances are really, really tight, because I'm about to raise a lot of money. And I've done this before. It's the first time. My fear in the past, because I raised a lot of money in the past, is going back out and doing that again. And so now I'm kind of putting in these controls and systems that I've really learned my lesson from back in the recession. So anyway, I'll stop there. But that's my kind of staff. So I probably have and that's not counting my marketing agency. So my marketing agency, I have another 10 employees that work in that. So most of them are VAs in my marketing agency. So I'm pretty adept with the VA stuff. It's really just understanding what kind of VAs you need now for this and stuff. But that's been kind of a ramp up period. And I've learned from guys like the people you have on the call here of what's necessary and what's overkill. So. Okay,
man, you brought up some good topics. There's some things.
Be careful if you have me a question, and you can interrupt me, by the way, because I don't want to suck the oxygen out of the room. I hate when these calls you get one person that blabs on forever. So
we don't want that, Ralph. Nobody wants that. That's my job. So
please cut me off.
Some big things. So simplify. You got 2 people in your shipping. You guys do all the shipping in house. You do it in your room next door. Yes. Your kids are helping, so that's why you do the business. I know you're big mission driven. There's some keys. There's some clues in that too. You mentioned 4 part-time sourcers. These are around the country. So are these OA buyers or RA buyers?
OA cheddar junkies.
OA cheddar junkies. Do you have one person per list, or how do you pay these people?
In dollars.
like an hourly, like a per lead thing? Or
so the way I pay my OA team is they get paid a commission on the percentage of buy. And the reason I do that, learn that lesson from another. So instead of doing profit, I do on the buy, because just for their mindset, it's easier for them to calculate. And I have to make sure that they're just trained well and I can trust them. Usually they're too conservative. So some people get fear like, oh, you do it that way with the percent of purchase. So, I do like a 5% base of the purchase, and I give them a bonus if they find replenishables, and we have a definition of replenishables that they'll go up to like 7 to 8%. After, so they have to find off of the list replenishables, and then if it sticks and we can go back and buy them 30 days later and they meet certain buying criteria, then those replenishables, which save them time, and then they get 7.5%, 8% on that replenishable list that they create. So even though we get your OA cheddar list and it's supposed to be a lot of replenishables, for us, we have to see it to believe it. And so we, test and, think markets change and stuff. So for them, they have to manage and see that. And that really helps me scale too, if I can get them to go deeper on replenishables in the second and third month.
Okay.
And a lot of that I learned from Devin too, by the way. So Devin's been huge with me on the OA side. So
this is interesting. You've taken it a step beyond list, as you have other people buying off the list. You're not even managing that. You're paying them 5% of the purchase cost, and then if they find a replan, you're giving them 7 or 8%. Is that forever on the replan, or just that one time that month?
Yeah, anytime they buy. So if they buy,
okay.
Yeah, so if they buy $1,000, they get $50.
So they're incentivized to buy off they're incentivized to build a replan list for you, and then they're incentivized to buy off that replan list, which saves you time.
Yeah, and it's all driven by me being lazy.
That's good. Hey, I've heard you said that. I'm glad you said that, Ralph, because I've heard from many wealthy people that you have to do less to earn more. And I remember hearing that advice when I was first starting off as an entrepreneur, didn't have any money, we've started over multiple times like you've all been in those places, and it sounds like ludicrous. And now as I'm growing in wisdom, I'm learning that what they're talking about, at least from my understanding, is building systems and processes where you replace yourself. Yeah. And I know the whole goal. And so I do want to talk about VAs and teams and stuff, because the people part of this business is a whole animal with that stuff. But that's good to put that in perspective. So
yeah, it'd be cool if you guys could do a course someday for people on that, like you did with your, part 2 to your course. I think these guys right here could probably do a good job teaching something like that.
On hiring people, finding people,
scaling your business, like the org chart, the job descriptions, how to do it, all that stuff. It's not out there in the community. It's kind of a missing thing, but this is, for me, the mission is really key. And it's not just because I have to be driven beyond just getting money, but then I want money too. And it's for me strategically, and I'll just throw this out there and let you guys go back. But I'm a very big fan of Robert Kiyosaki. I was coached by their organization back in the early 2000s when they first started that program. And one of the things that he talks about is the different types of income there are. There's earned income, there's portfolio income, and then there's passive income. And what I've kind of learned from Amazon business is it really is more of a portfolio income. It's not really passive income. And that's not a bad thing. It's just understanding what it is. And portfolio income's taxed higher than passive income, but it's earned income is taxed the highest. And so for me, I've been really, in my big picture, I'm driving towards continuing to build out this business, but I want my time, because in about 18 months from now, I'm planning to go really deep back into commercial real estate. And I'm going to keep this running while I have and I'm also building on the side a system right now for private label. I have 2 more VAs that I've hired already that are just focused on helping me research and source and do logistics on private label products, which I have none of right now, but I'm doing it so it's not built around me, it's built around a system, and I'm planning for success, even though I've stumbled a lot with private label. And but for me, in about 18 months, I want to be really going into so I can shield my portfolio income. So even if I'm making $1 million a year on Amazon, net, let's say in 2-3 years, then I want to be able to shield that income as much as possible. And you can do that through having real estate and passive income. And so there's techniques for that. And so that's kind of where my head is going. And then I can't do that if it's built around me. So.
Yeah. You just keep bringing it up like next level, because now I got to talk about it.
I'm sorry.
Real estate in a year and a half, when I think the market's gonna dip. I've been seeing the writing on the wall too, Ralph. So we're in I've sidebar conversation. Let me just ask some obvious questions real quick. I'm going to rapid fire these for you guys because there's some questions coming up in chat that I think are big ones for a lot of people. The first one is how are your sourcers buying things? Do they have a credit card? Do they have a debit card? How do they have access to your money to purchase?
I have Devin's credit card number. It works really great.
Devin's credit card number.
I use credit cards.
So they each have their own cards. You can track their buying basically, or
yeah. For me, I'm not doing it totally right. So I've had some bad credit issues, and I've been repairing them. So my team understands when I hire them, they're using their own credit cards, and there's some bad. That's not a good idea. But it's kind of where I am. I just make sure I document everything really well. And so the bottom line is, yeah, they use their credit cards, and my game plan is in the next 90 days to have some business credit cards in their name that they can use that's tied back to the company. But for me right now, they're using their credit cards.
They use their own credit cards.
Correct.
Okay, and then you reimburse them for their payment, and then
and we just have a real strict policy on reimbursement, so they're never paying a balance. Their balance never carries in no interest, that kind of thing.
Okay, cool. Other big question, and Devin and Grant, we got to give you guys. I want to hear from you guys too on some of these topics, on some of the keys. But capital came up. Where'd you guys get the capital to scale? Grant, I'll maybe start with you, man. How do you guys all have like a trust fund, or how did you guys scale from a capital perspective?
Right. So I think Ralph kind of mentioned raising funds. So we've done a little bit of that with family at times, but started out with credit cards, my own credit cards. I have quite the debt story. Tap has heard my debt story in detail, and it's pretty extensive. But started out with credit cards, did some private loans, personal loans. We used Cabbage for a time. We used Amazon lending for a time. We don't use those two sources anymore. Right now I have one lender, a private lender. It's actually my mom and dad. They're basically my bank, and I have two separate loans with them. And then we just use credit cards. And then now we're in a system where we rack up credit cards to about $20,000 every 2 weeks, pay them off with the payout, and then we just rotate that system. And so that's where we're at right now. But yeah, I think Cabbage is a good source. I mean, Fundera is a source that for like SBA loans, that's a source that Zach Young has shared with the group before. You can try them. They're trying to get me to borrow money from them now too. Stuff like that. But I think if you can get private loans, like through private lending, that's the best, because it can be a business loan. It doesn't have to affect your personal credit. So like my debt to income ratio was so out of whack there for a while that my score, in my early 20s, I had like a 750 score. And with all of the debt that we racked up, my debt to income ratio looked so bad because the business had tons of revenue, but on a personal level, I didn't. And so it looked like I had way more debt than I could afford. And so my score went down to like 550. I could still buy vehicles and stuff, but like getting a credit card for more than $500 after a while was pretty hard. However, with the consolidation loan that I've done with my family, and the reason we did that is because we spent so much on interest in 2017. I went to my mom and I was like, hey, we're going to pay quite a bit of interest again in 2018. Do you want to take on that income, or do you want me to continue to pay the banks? And my mom and dad talked about it, and they're like, no, we want that income. And so that's what spurred on that change. But I had a point that I was going to make. So then when we consolidated, now my score is climbing back up, and I can, I'm a decent looking borrower at this point, because we don't have credit card debts that we're carrying anymore.
So you could probably talk a lot about things of what not to do. I know you've there's a lot of advice you've given to Tap to, this is your path. But I'm curious. Well, Ralph, question for you specifically from Steve: are you paying off your cards every month, Ralph, or do you carry a balance?
Yeah, for the most part, we've been paying them off every month. There's one credit card that's fallen behind, and it's a very low interest credit card, so the interest isn't hurting us, but just the principle of it. So we actually scaled back our purchasing in May so we could get caught up, and that's so now we're caught up, and but yeah, it kind of ebbs and flowed, but strategically it made sense to carry it over for a short period because of the low interest rate on the credit card. But now we're as a matter of policy. I want to make sure we're paying it down all the time. And I'm also out right now working on a private placement memorandum to raise a considerable amount of funds to really inject into this thing in the same way that Grant just talked about through private loans. And there's another source that Devin knows about that we're looking at too as a possibility later in the summer. So anyway,
okay.
Yeah, that's the answer.
Short answer, yes, you do pay them off, and then you each have access. So there's different. This is really a conversation, I think, on good debt, bad debt. And I know this came up. I've talked to Bill Rooney about this. We had a call specifically about this. When is it wise to use debt? When is it not wise? When you're just starting off, I think we would all agree to do your testing in cash. There's no reason until you guys all have a skill level you've developed over years and a confidence in what you're doing. Devin, I'm curious with you, man. How did you scale up? Did you have secret money somewhere? Did you reinvest? How did you scale?
Yeah, so any means necessary, man. Any way you can get some financing, bro. So for me, if you go way back to when I first started, I didn't have any money, so I'd be tapped at like $3,000 a month spending limit, but the margins were pretty good back then. So even with $3,000, I was able to make like $1,800 to $2,000. And then I didn't have good credit either because unfortunately some student loans that should have been paid timely, I just kind of ignored the letters, and I wasn't aware, man. I was never educated about credit. So my credit was bad starting this business, man. Like bad. So my buddy Francisco, what would happen is I'd have like one good item that was selling, and I was like, hey, bro, if I could get like another, 50 of these, if you had some money, I'll give you like $50 or $60, on top of it. So he was letting me do that, and then I was paying him so consistently that he actually put one of his credit cards in my name. This was like years ago. And that did a couple things. A, it helped me build my credit score, and B, it gave me access to more capital. I've never held a balance except for Q4. That's the only time I've held a balance, because it's like there's Black Friday, and then you want to max out the opportunity, and then unfortunately the closing date of the credit card was shortly after that, and it was paid off, but never actually paid interest on a balance because you have that extra time period. So then, man, chugging along, Amazon lending was big. Just the fact that the interest rate wasn't the greatest, but you didn't have too many options, and it's a lot better than Cabbage. Like Amazon lending's interest rate might be like 12%, 11%. Some people might be as low as 8%, 7%. But Cabbage was like, 20%, 16%.
Yeah, it's like the eagle talons, dude. Use that last resort maybe, or don't.
So, yeah, man, Amazon lending, here's how I do it. When you take the loan, you max out the whole loan on inventory, and then what happens is the day after your credit card, like your biggest one, so my biggest one's like 33,000. I have a couple that are like 30,000 now. You max it out like as fast as you can. So if it closes on the 15th of this month, then you max out that card the 15th to like the 20th. You spend the whole balance. Meanwhile, all the inventory that you purchase with your other budget, that stuff has time to sell. Make sure you get stuff that's going to sell fast. And then that stuff will sell. So by the time the closing dates come in, you have that next payout coming, boom, $35,000, $40,000. So you can pay off the credit card by the 15th, or at least most of it. And then you can gauge your spending too. So if you see your payout, it's like 20,000, then you go, okay, I still have another 9,000 I can spend on this credit card because there's another 5 days before my payout. And if it's 20,000 now, I'm averaging $2,000 increase per day. So it'll probably be 30,000 on my payout, so I could spend. So knowing your logistics too, your like logistics of your business is important. And then also having, this is probably huge, guys, having a balance sheet. So if you have a good business structure, and another big thing is don't pay yourself a lot of money. So if you go to like a lending place, like one of these banks in New York, or a private lender, and you show them a balance sheet where everything's good, and then you pay yourself little, it's going to look good to them because it shows that you're a responsible user of the income that you're making, and you're not paying yourself a lot. Now, this year I have paid myself a lot. So I'm kind of like, last year I didn't, though. I only paid myself very little compared to what I was making. But then you show them the balance sheet. It's just like you have 2 years, 3 years successful business history. They know that you're a good risk. That's the risk of you borrowing, $100,000 to $500,000 that you're probably going to be responsible with that based on the past, the income statements, and you're probably going to scale your business, which you probably will. And that's where the magic happens. Hopefully, because that's where I'm at right now, is the same with Ralph kind of. I'm looking to get that higher funding sometime this summer. And then that'll just be an injection into my business. And one of the things I learned from Ralph too, that book, Profit First. Mm-hmm. So you have the systems in place. There's the list. That's why I'm on so many lists too. Like I don't want to lose my spot in 08 Cheddars. I'm like, let me keep my list memberships. Let me snipe the best leads. But then once that influx of money comes in, then just hire someone to order, which is someone I don't have yet. I have a prep person, I have a repricing person. I have list outsourcing, right, and lead outsourcing. But the buyer, and then just say, hey, I want you to go gangbusters buying everything. Because once you got more capital, you can settle with a 12% return. You can even settle with a 10% return. And you could also certainly take the 30 and the 25s and the 50% returns. But if you only have so much capital, you want to try as close as possible to stick with the higher return items, right? So the big fish guys, like a volume seller, like they can keep their system small, maybe 3 employees, and you can flip $200,000. Like you can do damage, guys. You could be making, even if you're just 9% net, like 9% net, and you have your system outsourced, like that's kind of my goal. That's $18,000 a month, guys, on $200,000 in sales, and 9% is net. That's $18,000 a month with a business that's outsourced, right? But you got to have that vision for it. You have to have the accounting correct, and you got to have something to show the lenders, right? And then trustworthy people. That's another thing. So you hire someone to order for you, make sure that there's the trust there, and you might have a product that makes you a lot of money.
Do you, Devin? Do you do all your sourcing, or do you have a sourcer?
Oh yeah, my sourcer is the person that magically sends the leads to my inbox every. As far as buying, I do all the purchasing.
You do the buying still. Okay, so Cheddar does the sourcing and other lists, and then you still do the buying. Okay, so this is interesting. So each of you guys have a little different approach. I would be really curious to ask you guys, if you were to do it over again, how you would use funding to scale your business. That seems to be like the big. I think a lot of sellers that are in that. And I don't know, maybe you guys can remember it. Like when you were going through the growth phase, it's like, oh, if I only had more money. So I think the common thread, and I've heard this from Ralph, Devin, you guys kept your eat grant too. Keep your personal payouts, keep them low. Like you don't have to pay yourself a ton in the beginning, because that allows your business to grow faster. So that's one strategy, kind of organically, to do that. I want to ask a technical question though. Casey Reap this is a great question, Casey. Thank you for asking this. As far as like. So we'll come back to the capital question, because this is ongoing, I think. And it's even now, it's like there's another level where you got, Ralph, you're looking to raise money from a PPO and different things like that. Casey's question, though, when you scale, do you guys prefer, and you guys all do arbitrage on some level, retail, online, both. Do you prefer to scale through doubling down on profitable SKUs? So I think he's talking about like replens and eliminating unprofitable SKUs. Or do you guys double down by adding more SKUs to your inventory and just going wide? I'll ask you, or whoever wants to tackle that.
Yes.
Both?
That's my answer, yes.
Both. That's what I say to you.
Devin, both? Double down on what works and go wide? Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, if you're gonna scale, you're gonna end up with more SKUs, period. And if you have more capital, you're gonna buy more of the SKUs that are really good, So yeah, I would say both and.
Okay, so both and.
I think there's some value though. Like what I do with the incentive on the replen list is really getting your teams incentivized to focus on replens, because if you can, replens are about time. If you can get a list of 50 to 100 replens, just think of that. Like if that's my goal. I told my team I want 100 replens by August, and our replens mean that you can go back and buy it 30 days after it was bought the first time, and it'll repeat that. And so long and short is that the replen idea is really key, because then there's more time in your overall system for them to also go and source new stuff too. And they're also getting better at analysis. So, and then my job is to coach, train, and make sure they listen to the stuff that you guys are talking about all the time, because it's they're actually in the group, some of my buyers. So when they plug in, I tell them, watch your stuff and listen to it, and it's really helpful for them.
So you're I love where you're at, Ralph, because you're just duplicating yourself in every layer. So giving your people access to your systems, your teams, you go get trained. Craig's been doing that also recently in Alpha. He just had his, he just brought on, I don't think he'd mind me sharing this, but he just brought on a new general manager to his business, and he had him join Alpha so he can plug into the calls and just, absorb himself and everything private label for the same reason. But so there's some systems and keys. You guys are each, I mean, I wrote this down before our call, some things that, some areas that people can look at, but you've been really good, Ralph, at removing yourself and making that conscious. I mean, I think that's what, if you guys have ever read the E-Myth, I've said this book like a million times in the group. It's like the baby step one for building systems. It's actually implementing it though is another thing. And you guys can all probably speak to that. Like actually letting go of the buying, it seems like a big, scary thing for a lot of people, and getting yourself out of pack and prep and ship's probably the easiest thing if you're still in that. I don't know. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, the one comment I would just underscore what Devin just said a couple minutes ago, like we could stop this webinar and just replay what he said. You'd be good. Like that tip he just gave is $1 million tip. And if you listen to what he talked about with the buying on the credit card and the timing, like just, I think having like almost for me, as he's saying that, he's like, I need to write that down in a timeline, each of my credit cards, and just kind of have that cash flow strategy. And that's kind of why I hired this CPA out of the Philippines, is to help me with getting these things right. And my goal is by August, like we have this so honed down from a cash flow management that, we know for every unit I put in, what the return is going to be and when I can buy it the next time. And that person can be telling the rest of my buying team, okay, here's what you can do. And it's they're working through a system that's been set up, not me in the business doing it all the time. And so, but I think what Devin said is it's kind of seems silly, because right now, if you're smaller, cash flow isn't always as big of an issue, because I got a credit card, 20 grand on it, I'm only going to spend 5 this month. But as you grow and you need to manage that more discreetly, it becomes so important to get that right, and the timing issues become, and that's been something like I haven't been good at. Like I actually, my latest vacation, I went out and got this book. I saw it's from, I don't know, it's these Harvard Business Review things. It's financial intelligence for entrepreneurs. And this is like, I was asking myself, what's my weak spots? Like over the years, I've had a business that had $30 million in assets in it, and it was $3.5 million in revenues a year. And I realized I didn't know as much about ratios and financial ratios. And I met with my accountant for 3 hours last week. And these are areas like I don't feel comfortable in. And like I know a lot about it more than the average person, but at the same time, I'm not like really doing a good job in there. And so not that I have to become perfect at, but I need to be able to have that emotional intelligence tied to my business and financial intelligence that gives me the confidence that my vision is going to go forward. And then I can build the systems off of that. And then when I inject the capital into it, I know my leadership skills and systems are there that my team can then just grow. And it sounds easier than there's a lot of problems that happen, but it's the understanding that you're really just limited by what's up here and what you're afraid of. And if you can just kind of get past those things, which can take you 3 to 5 years. I love what was just said, but I just think what Devin just said is just fabulous. And that for me, that's a huge factor for me to be able to scale, is my financial intelligence needs to be better.
Man, this is rich. I knew we'd get here. Only took us 55 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. It's once you can get out of the ego, right, of like being on a live camera, you just let the good stuff comes out. But no, this is rich, Devin. I think I agree with Ralph said, that having the long-term vision of scaling up isn't like a 6-month process. It's like a 18, 20 more month, 5-month process. I know, Ralph, you've got a 5-year goal you were sharing with us privately offline to build a $5 million. Do you mind me sharing, Ralph, if I share your vision? I want to share this, guys, because this is so clear and concise, and I believe that someone watching can borrow this, and maybe if your vision is different. Do you want to share it, Ralph, instead of me?
No, go ahead. You can share it. That's fine.
So Ralph just typed this in chat. He said his mission and goal is to build a $5 million Amazon business with 15% net margins in 24 months. And here's the kicker: that can operate without me. I love that, Ralph. I love that vision. So you've got a vision to build a healthy and a $5 million Amazon business. I mean, in our group, that's big sales in the world of Amazon selling, like the uber big whales. It still is. I mean, there's guys that have $10 million, $20 million businesses, and we're still picking up speed. Like this is just a big. We talk about the group like Amazon really is the Wild West. Still, it really is like. I mean, I look at this as like internet marketing like 20 years ago, or real estate investing 20 years ago, before like, you know, all this stuff happened. But clear vision, a humble 15% net margin, 24 months without me. So let me ask this. I'm going to just throw this up because you guys each hit on, you know, capital is one thing, but this cash flow issue is like a big deal for a lot of Amazon sellers. I don't want to skip over this because I want to know how you guys broke through this. You know, it's the classic dilemma, right? You've got all your money tied up in inventory. You got to wait 2 weeks till it comes back. You've got bills that you got to pay. So there's like this cycle, this juggling, and you've talked about, Ralph, you know, the financial intelligence with that. So how did you guys break through that? Because I think every seller gets to a point where they run out of capital to source, and it's like, what do you do? And then you start asking questions, you know, do I look for funding or whatever? So I'll just toss that up to any one of you guys. How did you break through that cash flow trap or the cycle?
Well, I think I'll just jump out real quick. I think one of the mistakes that I made actually was having access to more capital and not using it sooner. And I didn't do that because I didn't understand my business. I didn't like, you know, I think being conscious and really understanding, like having inventory labs set up, really understanding what all your expenses are. Like, I think a lot of sellers think they're making more money than they really are. And so I think once you really break down your business and you take account for, I mean, your phone bill. I don't care if you pay for that on a personal level. Like, that's a business expense. If you're using your phone for the business, it's an expense. And so, you know, and then there's just a lot of other stuff. I mean, consider the removal orders, right? If you got, you know, unfulfillable inventory, are you guys looking at that as an expense, as a cost on your business? It is. Like, you're losing that inventory, right? That is a pure and out loss, right? If you're not counting that against your overall sales, then you don't know how profitable you really are. And so I think there was a lot of time where I had access to more capital, didn't understand, thought I was more profitable than I really was because I didn't really understand all of the moving pieces of an Amazon business. And I slowly found myself slipping into a little bit more bad debt, right? Or essentially using cost of goods sold to pay my bills, right? Not profit. And that would be the biggest thing I'd say. Like, if, you know, I think a lot of people, you want to scale your business, you want to go borrow more money and sell more product. But if you're not scaling your efficiency and your accuracy with your accounting, then you shouldn't go borrow more money. You shouldn't go scale your business. You shouldn't worry about, you should consider cash flow, but you shouldn't try to increase cash flow until you actually understand how much cash is coming out of the business and all of the different areas where you're taking losses, or I wouldn't say losses, but, you know, have expenses. So
first step is to know, you're saying know your numbers. Like, this is the first step to this.
And here's the thing that I've learned is, like, and again, this is my first business. Like, I know with like Ralph, he's been in business for a while. He's a little older than me. He's probably not going through the same growing pains that I went through the last couple of years. But I feel like every 6 months, I tend to look at where I'm at and go, wow, like, I know my business today way better than I even did 6 months ago. Like, just this last month, I really broke down my numbers and like spent some time in my QuickBooks, which we've been doing for like 2 years, QuickBooks, and really broke it down and figured out, okay, you know, like I figured out like last year in 2017, my expenses came to an average of $25,500 per month. So I know that if I continue to spend like I did in 2017 and I don't crush out $25,500 a month in gross profit, I'm going to lose money throughout the year, right? Across the law of averages, right? And now, so yeah, so like, you know, I think, so like I said, though, even if you think that you truly understand your numbers, you might be surprised 6 months from now how you actually don't. And I think that's where coaching can be really valuable. You know, like I work with people who I have to kind of break this down, and it can even take 6 months to a year to still catch them up to speed, even when I've been speaking plainly on something for a while, right? And it's just because you only have so much, you know, and like you used an analogy too, Gabe. We talk about scaling, growing, and building. You were saying something about how, I can't remember what it was. Oh, you have to work less to make more. I think that makes sense, because if you're at a dead sprint, and I did this for years. If you're at a dead sprint, how clearly can you think about what's going on around you? You're exhausted, you're huffing and puffing. If you're doing that, but if you're on a leisurely walk, I can think, I can play on my phone, I can answer questions, I can coach somebody, I can coach myself, I can check numbers. So get comfortable with not growing super fast, because if you get ahead of yourself, you're going to find yourself in a debt trap like I did, and have to be figuring out ways to claw and scratch your way out before it all comes crumbling down. And that's where I was in early 2017. Just to kind of give everybody a little bit of backstory, like I was in trouble because, and there's a lot of things, a lot of different things, but I was at a dead sprint, partly because of my circumstances and partly because of my attitude. And now, by the grace of God, I've survived it, and we're moving forward. We're making really nice net profit, which is servicing a very hefty debt bill. But I'm at a leisurely walk level now. And I think that really speaks to me. What you said, Gabe, is like, now I'm learning how to make more money. I really don't spend a lot of time on my Amazon business either. Other than like setting up my App Eagle stuff. That's the one thing I really like to do. And I like to manage my accounts and manage my reviews and stuff like that. But that takes 5 hours a week, 10 hours a week. So, but yeah, that's my kind of the whole thing on scaling and cash flow. Like, cash flow is king, but also understanding how much of that cash flow is profit against your expenses is super important. So again, like I said, one obvious area where you're not considering expenses, most people aren't considering expenses, is unfulfillable inventory. If it's damaged by customers, that's a loss, and you need to count that against your overall profit.
So a couple keys in what you said. Great stuff, Grant. One, know your numbers. We talk about know thy numbers. So and then the second is, I love how you use the analogy of the leisurely walk. Like, get off the dead sprint. I'll echo that, man. I mean, there's wisdom in hard work. Like, don't hear me wrong. We're not saying don't work hard. There's a season for that. But if you want to scale, you've got to learn how to work smart. And there's a difference in that. And I know I came from a blue collar family where everybody had to work hard. That was success, like hard work. And it's taken a whole mindset shift to work less and work smart, and hire a team and lift people up around you that can excel in areas where you're weak at. And that's why you guys hear me in the group talk about strength finders all the time. I've got my books on the shelf right here, but I harp that to all of our clients, and I'm telling that to you guys because it's so important to know what you're good at, do that, and then find people that are good at the other stuff that you aren't good at. Like, I'm like you, Ralph. I suck at accounting. I hate accounting. So I love that. And that's a big tip I wrote down, by the way, outsourcing the backup, like checks and balances to your CPA. So thank you for sharing that. I'd never thought about that before. But so real quick for Devin and like rapid fire, and then I'm going to wrap up with a bow tie this. How do you guys know your numbers, Devin and Ralph? Do you guys are you guys using Inventory Lab? How do you guys keep pace on how healthy your business is on the day to day?
The big boy Ralph? Yeah. So, man, right now, I'm having my boys set up QuickBooks with everything. I've been using Inventory Lab, but their data is not 100% synced and accurate. So right now, but I use it for fulfillment, right? For our shipments, it's easy, and plus it gives you a snapshot idea. But I think for me at least, it's a little bit high on its levels and stuff. And plus your in-stock inventory value. So if you go to inventory valuation, I audited my inventory valuation with Inventory Lab. It wasn't accurate. So QuickBooks, having my boy do that. I'm going to be paying him, right, to do my balance sheet, right, do my P&L statements. So he's giving me a good deal, man. But I still, even if you feel like you're not getting paid enough, bro, I'll pay you more because he has an accounting degree and he does it as a profession too. So I'll pay you more than I have my accountant look over everything and finish it. Pay myself less though, guys. That's a tough one for this year, man. I'm trying to pay myself less money because I know that if you pay yourself less now, that's how you reinvest the money and you ball out in 2 years, right? But yeah, sometimes you have a good month and it's easy just to transfer it into your personal account. You're like, yeah, spend 10 grand, bro. My bad. Don't want to be spending that much coming up, guys. Not every month. Even if you do good, like, you got to have a purpose, right? You got to be disciplined. So I might do the envelope thing for my personal self and put some money in envelopes. But for my business, I'm very big on debt. So QuickBooks, can't go wrong. Get yourself a good bookkeeper. And then pay yourself less if possible, guys. Don't be a square and stingy, but be smart,
So Inventory Lab, but you cross-reference that with your own record keeping. Ralph, what do you guys do, man, to know your numbers? When you sign in and to work in the morning, do you have a system that you can like check on things, or how do you keep track of that stuff?
Yeah, we use Xero for bookkeeping instead of
Okay.
QuickBooks.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, Xero. It's kind of the up and coming replacement for QuickBooks. Some people are going to it, and you know, everyone has their little peculiarities and stuff. My accountant who uses it. So yeah, I've so Xero, and then I have I actually have a guy that used to be my shipper. He moved on. He was a banker. Went back into banking, and he still comes in for me a couple times a month, and he creates a cash flow spreadsheet. And so I know down to the penny on a basically at least a biweekly basis, sometimes weekly, where like, okay, how much is coming in, how much the credit card bills are, what we can afford to spend, how much payroll is, all this stuff. So I have it all summarized in one sheet, and that's really helpful. We're trying to automate that where that's all operated through Xero. And then my bookkeeper and my accountant they're actually one and the same, my bookkeeper account, which some people don't think that's a great idea, but in this case, it's okay with this team I'm using. I'm overpaying for financial people big time right now where my business is. And the reason why is like, I'm going to try to raise about $500,000 in the next 6 months to inject into the Amazon business. And I need to have my numbers right. So when I get the investors I'm going to go to are very successful business people. And I want to have integrity with them, but I also want to know my numbers when they ask the tough questions and with the ratios and stuff. So I'm going to be doing both a private placement memorandum and also a lender that Devin and I are looking at using, going to them for like an SBA type loan. So in that fashion, the numbers are very important. But yeah, those are my systems though. In Inventory Lab, yes, I use. I also kind of have hesitations with Inventory Lab too. I don't think it's like bad, but I don't lean on it like I would have in the past. And I think it's how its reconciliation works. There's a program called A2X out there. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. A2X. It basically integrates and sets up the timing so it fits a fiscal month to month on your sheet with it's an API that goes between your Amazon account and Xero, and it makes it talk to each other so your actual numbers in your accounting system are accurate. And that's another subscription I've used is A2X. And that kind of fleshes out and keeps Inventory Lab kind of honest too. Okay. So anyway, and I think over time there's more of these systems coming out that are going to get better and better at this stuff that'll make it easier for sellers to have more accuracy.
Yeah, it's been a challenge in our industry, and that's we're U.S. sellers. Then we have we have Alexander in the group who's in the UK, and he can't even use Inventory Lab.
Yeah,
so if you guys think it's bad here, it's we got it good. That's why I say it's the Wild West. Like they're still building, these. So each of you guys have a little different accounting system. So there's no like right way or wrong way to do it. I think a lot of sellers think, is there the right way to do it? I want to ask, I'm just going to ask some rapid fire questions real quick, guys. And I want to try and wrap this up. We could talk, we could spend an afternoon chatting about these things. We'll maybe have to circle back on a part 2 or something. But Caroline had a good question. I think it's relevant for all of us. Was there a dollar range or some other trigger that caused you to scale? And she's asking because she said she's newish, she started just over a year ago and was wondering when to scale. So I think this is a good starting question. What do you guys think?
When your systems are tight and efficient, I think you should scale your systems and efficiency first, and then add employees and resources like financial resources. But if your systems are kind of broken or you're still building them and figuring them out, then it's probably not a good idea to like bring people onto your team and stuff because they're not going to know how to thrive yet. And I can speak to that like from personal experience. Like I had, in 2016, I had 2 good months, where we made like really nice net profit. And then like an idiot, I went and hired 2 people for more than what they were worth because they'd never done anything like this before. And it cost me a lot of money, right? I learned a lot in a very short amount of time, right? Because I got 3 smart guys out in the store shop, scanning and stuff. But yeah, so I'd say get your systems super good. Like when you feel really good about your systems and when you feel really confident that you truly understand your profit after your overhead expenses and you understand what all your expenses really are, then go hire somebody to help you scale that efficient system. And I think part of that, don't have all my stuff written down, but I think a lot of that is documenting your systems, whether it be by video or, I know Ralph has, written out all of his shipping SOPs, standard operating procedures and stuff. And so he sets his team up to win because they know exactly what to do. And if they have a question, they can refer back to an efficiently designed standard operating procedures manual. So that's when I think it's time to scale.
Okay, so dial in your systems first, your systems and your processes first, then add the people, and then add capital and other resources. So Ralph, great stuff. Ralph, Devin, what would you guys say? Anything different than that, or when's the best time to scale?
I agree with Grant, and that's, yeah. I mean, plus you have to define scaling for some of you, like if you have more money than you do time, you might just start doing a lot more online arbitrage, right? Your margins are generally going to be lower, generally, not all the time, but that way, if you've got like $20,000 just sitting in some bank account, you're like, man, this has been proven with $2,000. You might be able to easily spend $20,000 by just getting on a list or two, and then you can do that from your house or from a prep center, maybe just from your house, so you can know the system, right? And then think about looking for, that next step for that system, right? Writing an SOP. Like, you guys are smart with that, man. My SOP has just been me over the shoulder physically teaching. Well, that's not an efficient way to do things. If you're trying to build a big company, here's the paper, read it, and then come to me with your questions, or if you have a manager, like, Ralph thinks even bigger. So his scaling is, I don't want no one coming in with questions. They can come to my company manager with questions, right? So defining scaling, for some of you guys, scaling is going to be going to 5,000 a month, and you might need to start not having an employee or anything, and then you say, okay, I'm willing to pay someone $1,500 a month, and I'll take $3,500. So yeah, have your systems down though, guys. You'll have a lot more peace. As you scale, you don't want to be scaling and be like, whoops, didn't look at that one, man. Expensive.
I think I want to add something to what you just said, or kind of something I heard a really smart person talk about when it came to scaling. And she was all about documenting all of her systems, everything. And what she actually did is she built a business kind of like what you're talking about, Devin, because I did this too, right? You hire somebody, you over the shoulder teach them. You have to do that anyway. I mean, if they've never shipped to Amazon, they're not going to be able to learn from a written document only. But you can teach them and then get them good, get them efficient. Like Charles is really good right now, but if you got a good employee, then you can have them write up your SOPs and, or sit down with them and be like, okay, what do you do? Because I bet, like right now, Charles could probably teach me more about shipping than I could. I mean, we've probably discussed everything that he could teach me, but I'm not doing it every day. Right. So one of my goals is to sit down with him and like really just interview the living snot out of him and write out my SOPs, because there's a lot of little things, in the shipping process that come up that you're not going to remember to document that unless, but like, I think what Ralph does is when something comes up, if I remember, I think we had a conversation about this, and then he'll go add something to his SOP. Like once a new something comes up in that process, he's like, oh, I need to go back to my sheets and add that in. But yeah, so I think you can hire employees before you have documentation. But I think, like, again, if you're going to try to build a multi-million-dollar business, $10 million business, that, yeah, you better have stuff that documented,
SOPs, man, it's the boring stuff, dude. There's a good book.
It is.
Here it is. Hang on one second. This is a next level resource. Since we're talking about systems, I'll leave you guys with this, and then I'm going to ask you guys one butter question. We're going to wrap up today. So read this if you haven't read this one yet. The E-Myth's a good starter process. I may do a training in the group for this on the basics of systems, but this is a new one. Ralph, have you read this guy before?
No, I've heard that book. I heard it's really good.
Traction by Gino Wickman. This was recommended to me by several of the masterminds I'm in of guys that are doing like 10 to 100 million plus companies, recurring revenue, software, stuff like that. Actually, one of the guys I interviewed on my Facebook wall, a guy named Ron Phillips, was a part of the Inc. 5000. And he's like, dude, you got to read this book. So this is like E-Myth 2.0. And it goes all into detail about exactly what you guys are talking about, of building systems and the SOPs, the standard operating procedures for everything. So this is big, and this gets tossed around a lot. There's guys, one of my buddies has a company, he just hired a consultant for 25 grand to implement what's in this book. So I don't want to overhype it, but this is I mean, people pay 25 grand to learn. You can buy the book for 20 bucks. It's not short, but for those of you that want to scale, good stuff in here. I want to wrap. So these are good resources to take away. If you guys start with this one's way easier to understand. Like, it's kind of like real simple principles. But Carolyn says great information. Carolyn, you had a great comment. She said, I forget it has taken y'all a while to get where you are. So be patient with myself and my business. And I think I think we have people that are on today's call, guys. They maybe hear you guys. They look up to each of you in a unique way. But you guys have all been on your own path. You guys have all bounced off of zero, if not once, twice. You know, Ralph, you talked about starting over again a couple of years ago. We've all had that experience. I feel like I just went through an experience like that this past year. Grant, you kind of had a turnover type experience. Devin, you've gone from zero, be less than zero, with people all around you, poverty all around you, to raising and lifting yourself up by the grace of God to where you are. And now you guys are just getting started. So I think the key here, guys, is just have peace with wherever you are on the journey. There is no, and I think all these guys here on the call can attest, there's no someplace you're supposed to be. And Ralph, you hit this on the head the other day, that we do this all the time in business, this comparison thing, where you look at somebody else and you're like, man, I'm not, you look at, and everybody does this. I know very wealthy individuals who compare themselves, and it robs your joy. I don't believe that Christ created us that way. So just have peace with wherever you are. And Grant, you put it very elegantly. Treat your business like a leisurely walk. Devin, you said it another way. Treat it like a leisurely walk over 18 to 24 months. And then, Ralph, sometimes it's on a little rocky soil. You don't have shoes, but that's okay. You just keep walking. Just got to keep on the path. But let me ask you guys this question in closing. I'm going to rapid fire this for each of you guys. I'm really curious. So like in 30 seconds or less, my question is, knowing what you guys know now, what would you do differently if you were starting over again from scratch today? So I'll just start with Devin. We'll just go down the line, man. What would you got all the wisdom you got, all the knowledge you got, but you're starting over financially and with your business. What would you do different?
I would take a little more risk. Right. I was very picky about the quality of condition. I was way too picky. Like, there would be like a wrinkle on the box. I'm like, use like new. And it's just not what you need to be thinking about, guys. You don't need to be thinking about the micro. Think about the macro. The other thing is keep doing what works for you. So a lot of times, guys, I've been in a season where things were hot and I just had a way of doing things, whether it was just Walmarts were on fire, and I would be making great money. Like, I'm talking like $8,000 a month. Like, within my first year, I had like 8,000, 9,000 profit a month. And then you'll hear about something, or you'll think you need to do something different. No, just do what works. I know some people that I met, guys, they just flipped from eBay to Amazon, something I don't do because I'm too scared to do it. Making 10 grand a month. Just eBay, high margin stuff, very high margin, right? And it's probably authentic, right? They're doing discontinued, that type of stuff. Think about it. But that's something I wouldn't do. But hey, if it's working for them, I'd try. The other people ain't doing it and you're making money, keep doing it, right? But know the risk too. So keep doing what works. Think big.
So take more risk. You wouldn't have worried about the little details of the box is damaged or whatever. You just get it sent in. Keep doing what's working. So whatever you're doing that's working, keep doing that. I think that's great. I'm glad we're ending on this, because I think as entrepreneurs, we're always looking for like that next thing, and we forget about what's in front of us. And so we say this in the group all the time: prosper where you're planted. If you've got a little honey hole, and you said some places earlier, Ralph, whatever's working, source that. And 3, Devin, saying he'd think bigger from the beginning. That's interesting. So cool, man. Ralph, what about you? Knowing what you know now, starting over again from scratch, which you just did that a couple years ago. So Lord, God forbid it had to happen again. What would you do different on Amazon?
On Amazon, yeah, I think we didn't get into this much today, but Grant has a talent for the velocity of sales and what you source so you can move faster. And really, it kind of ties back to what Devin said with your cash flow management. If you can figure out your cash flow management and then also the velocity of sales, you're going to be able to scale like crazy, because your confidence level is going to go so high. Because if it takes, so the big problem you have with buying and selling shoes, which I was still big into, about 70%, is not, shoes don't sell as fast as groceries and replenishables and health and beauty. So really recognizing if you're, depending on your business model, and some people are fine with that, And I have like 1,000 shoes in inventory right now, roughly, so that's, like kind of where we stay. And we'll sell 400 or 500 shoes a month, so but the problem is those other shoes aren't selling, and there's a lot of capital invested in that. So those are, I look at each dollar bill as an employee. And if it's not working for me, it's like sitting on the bench, doing nothing or in bed. So I have to get those working. So what Grant has done with figuring out how, if he has a $200,000 in inventory sitting into Amazon, and then he's selling through 175,000 of that a month, that's much better than me, who I might only be selling through 100,000 of it a month. And even if his ROI is lower than mine, he's doing a better job in that regard. So I really, and that's kind of where I am today, like, is just figuring that out. So if between now and August, September, like, my goal is to grow up and be like Grant. So that's where I'm going. I want to get really good. And I love what you guys are doing on the OA Cheddar list. There's good work there that's really focusing on these things, because the secret sauce is learning how to find items and be able to scale. And I think the work you guys are doing there is helpful in that regard. So yeah, that would be kind of my big things. I probably would have been a little more risk. I mean, in hindsight too, I mean, I probably could have been a little more aggressive with raising capital and stuff. I've been kind of slower at that now. And I know once I get this next cash infusion, I'll be like, oh man, why didn't I just do this 9 months ago, last Q4? But emotionally, I wasn't ready for it. And I think what you guys just said, I just had to be where I was. And now, I'm there and I'm ready to do it. And I didn't force myself to be something I'm not at that point. So, and I'm also, right now I'm frustrated that I'm not further along with private label, because I knew when I got into this business, I wanted to be in private label to begin with. And just being okay where I am right now today. And, so anyway, I think that's contentment is probably, being more content. Maybe that's a good theme to take away.
So you mentioned sales velocity. I'm going to summarize what you said. So you would focus on products that sell faster. So be more like Grant. You guys are experts at this, turning stuff fast. We could have a whole call about that. You mentioned cash flow management. That's a tricky little conversation. I'll have to circle back on that one, because that's probably a conversation by itself. I don't know if there is like a right answer for that. And then you mentioned, I can't read my handwriting. What was the third thing you just said?
Contentment.
I was writing being is what I wrote down. Being content with where you are in the journey. Don't compare yourself. I think that's good advice, Ralph, for us now. I mean, like you said, I don't think you said I was what I was there now. I was where I was then, and I am where I am now. And same as you are here, wherever that is. And be okay with that, and embrace the journey. I think that's a big key in all this stuff. Like, don't think, when I sell $1 million on Amazon, like these guys, then I'll be happy. Like, that's what the enemy wants you to believe. Like, experience happiness and joy, and experience the joy of just progress. I like to celebrate progress. I feel, so wherever you're at, if you go out and you go source, go spend $500, buy off a list, that's progress, and be happy with your success, and just stay on the path, stay on the leisurely walk. So, good work. This is rich. I'm gonna have to take
the book, by the way. Traction.
Look how fast he is. Take action fast. Be like Ralph. Well, Grant, let me ask you, man. Starting over from scratch, all the wisdom you have now, all the debts wiped clean, all the money goes away. You're starting from scratch. What would you do different?
Well, I've been asked this question before, and I never felt really true to myself on the answers I've given, because I just didn't have enough time to think about it. But this time, for some reason, and I think this is going to sound sort of like a pitch, or might feel like a pitch, but because you guys know that I run TAP, so don't hear it that way. But I've just finished a year working with up to 16 people in TAP, and to be honest with you, this is the honest to goodness truth. The first thing I would do different, probably the biggest thing I would do different, is I would go find somebody who believes taking your money is a very sensitive responsibility, and will give you a lot of value, as much value as they possibly can, for coaching and mentoring. I would go find somebody, because here's the deal. The biggest growth I've had in this business has been from relationships, right? Like, I think about the biggest turning point when for me was in March of 2000. One of the biggest earlier ones was in March of 2015. I went to Rhode Island, met a guy named Matt. Boom, flipped my business over. I was full-time in my business that August. So that was March. And then the following August, I went full-time in my business. That was from a relationship and literally having one video call with him where he told me, get a repricer, you're an idiot. You know, like turn your inventory faster, you know, but that relationship was a turning point for me. In 2016, I paid $5,000 for another mastermind, and just understanding where this dude was spending his capital was a huge turning point. That I paid $5,000 pretty much just to see where he was spending his money. I never got any coaching. Now I will tell you, for $5,000, I expect somebody call me at least once a month, right? A little bit, or at least for a couple of months. But that's not what I needed. But the point is that $5,000 was a huge turning point for me, because now I knew how a multi-million-dollar seller spent his money on OA, RA, and Amazon flips. That was a huge turning point. But be careful. I also warn you too, like, find somebody you trust, find somebody who you follow for a while and you trust that they're really going to invest into you if you invest into yourself, and give them money. Because I also gave somebody, and it doesn't matter who it is, but I gave somebody a lot more than $5,000 at one point who didn't deserve that money. And so be strategic about who you invest in, because if you're going to invest in yourself, you also want to be strategic about the coach that you're investing in as well. So I would say I would go get a high-level mastermind and coaching mentorship. That's what I would do. Go find somebody who's been in the game for several years, who's gone through most of the hurdles and the pain and the frustration, and has figured out how to spend money really quickly and very efficiently, and let them just pour into you. That's what I would do. Sorry, that was longer than 30 seconds, but.
No, it's rich, man. This little last section here has been really, really rich. So you would invest in a mentor from the beginning, and that's wise words, man. There's learned a long time ago. There's two ways to learn: mentors and mistakes. And This is exactly why we created TAP when we first released TAP as the arbitrage. This is exactly why we created Alpha when we opened Alpha, is to have a community where you can speak openly about your challenges, have people that lift you up and can see more potential out of yourself than you can see in yourself. And that's why being in a group like that is so valuable. So I'll echo that. So I'll answer the own question. It's only fair that I answer the question, right? If I ask you guys, I get to ask the questions. Someday I want one of you guys to interview me. I got a lot. I've gathered all these little nuggets over the years. I want to share them with people. So I will, starting over from scratch. Number one, I think I would have believed in myself a lot sooner. I would have done that, and I would have taken what Devin said, and I would have thought big picture. So if I was starting over, I would have thought 10 years. Like, where do I want to be in 10 years from the beginning? Not where do I want to be? And I think as I've grown in wisdom and experience as an entrepreneur, like Devin said, that timeline, you start looking at life longer. Maybe it's as you get older. You know, it used to be the what am I going to do today? Then it's this week. Then it's this month. And as you get on the leisurely stroll, it becomes, what am I going to do what do I want to accomplish this quarter? What do I want to accomplish this year? And you start simplifying your goals. So I think, believed in myself a lot sooner. I would have also echoed what Grant said, and I've always done this. I've invested in my own masterminds, and I continue to do. But get around people that are. I mean, here's the biggest shortcut. If I can offer you anything, if you listen to anything from today, is if you want a specific result in life. And this goes for Ralph and his commercial real estate. This goes for any kind of business you're building, is get around people who are playing at a higher level in that sport. And I say that it's all mental. You got to be around someone who makes a couple $1 million a year to start thinking it's normal, and to start having that, when you have that light bulb, that if that idiot can do it, like I can do it. And I say that lovingly, because you'll meet people at a conference where you're like, this dude or gal is no smarter than me. They just been at it longer. So get yourself around the people, get yourself around a team that lifts you up. That's why we do calls like this. And I hope you're blessed today by this information, because we all learn from each other. So rich talk. We'll have Carolyn said a part 2 would sound awesome. I don't want to volunteer you guys for a part 2 if it's in the cards. If we can get, it's a small miracle to get all of our schedules to align for this call. So if you guys found value in this, type in the chat maybe what your one breakaway has been from this call. I want to leave you guys with this, because it's really easy to get overwhelmed. You get a lot of good. This is a great discussion. What's one takeaway? What's one thing you can implement from today's call? Post that in the chat. But I want to say thank you to each of you guys, Devin, to Ralph, to Grant. You guys are an inspiration, and I want to encourage each of you guys to that you make more of a difference in the world than you guys realize. And I firmly believe this, and I think that there's going to come a day where you're going to cross over into heaven and get to see all the fruits of your work. Right now, we're just in the labor mode. So keep laboring the good work. You guys are each lights, cities on a hill in your own unique places in the country, and I can see how God's working through you guys uniquely. So appreciate each of you guys, man. Anything closing words? I'll give you guys last chance. Or any closing words?
I had one thing I forgot to say, and you brought it up, is one of the secrets that for us was scaling, for me personally, and I actually knew this self-consciously from my prior growth with real estate, is networking. And I've actually spent a lot of money doing networking. I don't feel like in fact, this past 6 months, I've actually scaled back my networking, believe it or not. I didn't go every little conference but I would go to conference like ASD coming up in July, or, I don't go to that to go find wholesale items. I go to it to go to the parties and the hotel rooms and network with people. And that's where I get more value out of that, hanging out with key people, than I would ever get by, being on even this group right now. Like, as great as this might be for some of you, hang out with Devin for a couple of days on a trip, and you get way more out of him and a friendship than you'll ever get. And so there's networking is one of the secret sauces to scaling, because that's how your financial and emotional intelligence comes from. And then also your vision comes out of that. All the practical details with the systems and cash flow, you can learn those skills and techniques anywhere, but the networking for me has been a big deal.
That's good, Ralph. Yeah, that's good. Let's clap it up.
That's good, dude. That's rich.
You need to get out to more conferences.
I do.
I need to see you. I don't think I've seen you at a conference yet, other than the one here. So
I hear you. I agree with you 100%. I got to make more money, and then I'll travel all over the country with you, Ralph.
All right.
Get around the people and the money comes. Don't put the cart before the horse. You get around the people, it changes the beliefs, the money follows. So wise words though, Ralph. There's I can't say it any better. The networking, you get around the people, it changes you. So cool, guys. Well, Carolyn Murray, Donna Smith, Julie Wiseman. I see a bunch of you guys that are on here live. Casey Reap. Saw Bill Rooney in the house, Janelle Knapp, a bunch of you guys that are on live, Steve Butler. So appreciate you guys being on live. I'll link below this video after we're done to the OA Cheddar group. If you want a spot on Dose, I'll link below to the alpha that we talked about, and to the group if you guys are not a part of it. But appreciate each of you guys, man. Thank you guys for making time together. I've got pages of notes, and I've been blessed by our time. So appreciate each of you guys.
Thank you, Gabe, for putting this together.
Thank you. See you.
Onward and upward. Cool, guys. Well, have an awesome day, guys, in the group. We'll see you soon. And give these guys some love when you see them in the group, too, because these guys do this because they love you guys, and they just want to sow some seeds back. And we ask, I guess this is fair. I can ask this for all you guys. Don't we all ask? We love you guys. Just pay it forward someday to somebody else. That's what we ask, right? Someday when you're at Ralph's level and Devin and Grant, just pay it forward to help somebody else, and that's how the cycle goes. So anyways, have an awesome day, guys. Love you. We'll see you soon.
Bye.